if you're just joining us, or if you picked the second video to start with, this is the post show of the Gadgets for Families Tech Show, and main show is all about the Vision Pro. And I'm going to throw out a statement for this post show that Jason is going to roll his eyes, maybe throw something about, because it's relates to his beloved iPad Pro. And I have heard people that are in love with the iPad that would prefer to do all of their work on the iPad. I have heard them ask the question, and it's too early to tell. None of them are giving us an answer on this yet, but they are saying, is the Vision Pro the best iPad that Apple has ever made? And so that's the statement I want to throw out there. We'll let Jason go on a rant here for just a minute, because I know where he stands on this, but I want to talk about why people may be asking that question, and the secret sauce, the continuity, and the ability to connect the Mac into the Vision Pro, but not to be able to connect the Mac to your iPad, I think is where that comes in. So, Jason, go ahead. Let us have it.
So I can see the Vision Pro replacing the iPad, but definitely not this model, and probably not even this decade, right? We talked about the kind of, for lack of a better term, the decentralization of computing when it comes to these glasses, right? You take your processor to be the size of your phone without a screen on it, stick it in your pocket, and that's going to handle, between that and the cellular connection and in the cloud, that's going to handle all of the processing.
Yeah.
Use your watch as an interface, use your glasses, the Vision Pro as an interface. But in the current version that it is now, it is way too cumbersome to get a simple task done than it is on the iPad, right? You take your iPad, you have the keyboard or whatever, you flip it up, unlocks with your Face ID, bang, 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 a couple of notes, close it, and you're off to the next meeting. This time, in this current version, you have to connect it, you have to log in, boot it up or whatever, connect it to your power connector or whatever. You have to load in, however you load in all of these types of apps. So again, all that's going to be streamlined. It's going to be better in the next version and the next version and the next version. But until we get to the point where the Vision Pro is really just an output device, and you can have, like I said, a little card size processor or with the cellular connection and the Bluetooth connection and all of that in your pocket, I don't see it replacing the iPad. So I say again, definitely not this model, but probably not even this decade. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let me talk about that future state, right? What I would love to see is my phone, right, has Mac OS, iPad OS, and iOS all on it.
Right.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be a phone at that point, right? We need to stop calling it a phone at that point. It'll just be
correct. I agree.
Whatever processing unit.
Something like this, right? I mean, you still need to have something with super good cameras. So I think that's why I keep saying something like this, right? Because this is where you want the best hardware. You're still going to need, until technology improves, you're still going to need something about that size, right? For battery and for things like the camera, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the wireless technology, the cellular, the Bluetooth radios, and
right. If I could take and drop that into a dock, and when I dropped it into that dock that had a keyboard and trackpad, it booted up Mac OS, and I just started running Mac OS, right? Or I dropped it into a different one, or I flipped a switch on that same dock and it ran iPad OS.
Yes.
Or doesn't matter which one it's running, I flip a switch and these glasses, not the ski goggles, but these glasses become my display for whatever it is that I'm dealing with, right? I think that's the future that I'd love to see us. That's the, Mission Impossible. What's the one where they were doing pre-crimes with Tom Cruise too? Anyway, Minority Report.
Minority Report. Yep.
That's that kind of a future, and that Microsoft video on the future of computing, where I'm in a hotel room and there's just a glass screen and I just set my computing unit down and flip everything up onto a glass display or something like that. Fine. Yeah. Future state, right? But decades away more than
And I don't
likely.
think it's that far off. I don't think it's that many decades,
Yeah.
maybe the next decade.
Eh,
You know what I mean? Twenty
yeah, maybe
thirty
the
four or
next.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing about right now, and this is what gets me thinking about what do I buy in March versus maybe later this year, is
Hmm.
I have a fantastic MacBook. This thing is incredible, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I go days without plugging this thing in,
Yeah.
right? And I've
Crazy.
been
Yeah.
spending a lot more time sitting at my other desk, not my recording station, and sitting elsewhere. And I still, when I go to plug it in, I think, oh, it's got to be getting down. And it'll say, yeah, you still got 8 hours of battery left.
Yeah.
So, and it has all the power and does all of the things, right? So if I think about that and I think about, okay, if I want to improve my personal study, which is one of the main reasons I want the iPad battery is not going to be better than my MacBook. I mean, as good as your iPad battery should be, we know yours isn't, but as
Yeah.
good as the iPad battery should be, 10 to 12 hours is not
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
get
It
out
won't
of
be.
this MacBook, right? Fine. If I think about that, the MacBook's going to be a better fit for me. If I then think about, okay, what don't I like about my personal setup over here? Well, I don't like the fact I'm actually using continuity today. When I study in the morning, I've got my iPad mini sitting on a little stand next to my
Hmm.
MacBook because the study app that I use is way better on the iPad. And the journaling app, which we're going to talk about in 2 episodes, is way better on the iPad than it is on the Mac. On the Mac, it's just
Hmm.
kind of a basic thing and it's not as aesthetically pleasing, all that kind of stuff. So if I think about improving that, I start thinking, do I want to spend, even though we saw the rumors, right? And Jason was very glad. The rumor is it's not going to be $600 more expensive for the new iPad Pro. It's only going to be
Right.
160. But then I'm still back to a $3,000 budget to get the new iPad Pro,
Right.
right? With the accessories that I would need because I'm not in that ecosystem right now. So if I think about my personal situation, the question is going to be, where do I spend $3,000 to $4,000? And do I spend it all on the iPad Pro, which means there's probably no way I'll get this first gen Vision Pro,
Hmm.
or if they come out with the 12.9-inch iPad Air that I can get with a simpler keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard, and trackpad, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily the docking station one that we've been talking about.
Right.
If I
If
can
it
get
even
all of that,
exists.
yeah,
Right.
right. And the rumor is right now the 12.9 is coming out. There's not going to be any new accessories for the iPad Air, which means it would be today's Magic Keyboard. I would not get the Apple one, right? I would get
Yeah.
one of the other ones, especially where I would want to be able to pair it with the Vision Pro. So that's the question, right? Is does the Vision Pro replace my iPad Pro and I still want the iPad? What iPad do I need then at that point, right? So
Hmm.
if I slot the Vision Pro in for the iPad Pro, do I wait until the end of the year and just get the brand new iPad mini because it'll still be better for reading books
Right.
and stuff like that, right? And so this is where I'm at. Do I think it completely replaces the iPad? Not for most people. Not for you that it's
Yeah.
your primary device, that it's what you do everything on. No, I don't think it replaces that. Do I think it may be a better fit for my current state
Right.
than an iPad Pro? Possibly, because I also get the portability and I get the giant canvas. And
Hmm.
think about the art that I do, Jason.
Yeah.
If I could somehow connect, they haven't done this yet. That's the one thing it doesn't do. No pencil input on the Vision Pro,
Right. So no
right? But
precision,
no,
precision.
but I have
Creativity.
heard people have been able to connect their iPad. And so one of them was talking about Freeform. So he had his iPad laying flat on the table and had Freeform open, and then had Freeform open as a giant canvas on his Vision Pro, and was able to walk around like it was sitting on a whiteboard and
Right.
work
Right.
on and look at things and do all that kind of stuff and maybe move some things around. But then if he needed to go back and do precision work with his pencil, he just walked back over to the iPad, did it on the desk because it's pass through, so you can see it, you can interact with it, and it
Right.
showed up on the great big giant canvas. And so, does that make more sense? And I don't have an answer, right? I think it's going to depend on what they come out with in March.
Right.
I think it's going to depend on, how much money can I afford to spend? Am I willing to spend, $5K now to get a Vision Pro and an iPad
Mm-hmm.
and then not get a new phone in the fall? Right. I
Right.
mean, those are
Right.
all the decisions. So for those of you listening or watching this show, that's why you want to stick with us. We're going to go through this journey. I guarantee we're going to be making these decisions, right?
Right.
Where we're going to fall, at least for me, I don't know. It sounds like Jason's still set on his path. He's getting the new 12.9-inch iPad Pro in March.
Yeah.
Fine. But I don't know what I'm doing at this point, what combination of devices are going to make the most sense for me. So,
Yeah. And it may change for me too, right? Something may come, that killer app may come. It just may be worth it to make that jump at the time. But,
yeah.
all of this stuff is just dependent on what Apple allows and the software that they create and what developers create for it, right?
And again, the downside that we have is we are not going to know what the next gen of all the OSs are until well after we believe we need to make the iPad hardware decision, right? So we're not going to know, is iPad OS, the next version, going to allow us to connect to the Mac, which would be cool, or to do
Yeah.
some of the other stuff we've been talking about doing. We don't know any of that. We don't know if Vision OS 2.0 is going to allow the iPad to AirPlay into the Vision OS environment. Because if that was
Right.
the case, other than your battery issues that you have with yours, right? I would argue that it might be better for you to spend the $3,000 on the Vision Pro, keep the current
Yeah.
iPad,
Keep my current one.
right?
Right. Right.
So, but we're not going to know all of those answers. And so I don't know. I don't know how this spring's going to play out. It's going to be interesting. And I get to add on to that. I'm trying to sell the house and move and all that kind of stuff. I already told Karen, if we do sell the house the way we think we're going to sell the house, which would be a bonus, their Vision Pro will be the first
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that I purchase. So, and she's like, okay, I love
Yeah.
my wife.
Of course, she's going to say, go ahead and get it. But, we talked about that guy with the small apartment or just trying to save space. Yeah, it would be perfect for a trailer.
Yeah,
You know?
200 square feet is about what a trailer is, even if you
Right.
get a decent size one, right? There's no big walls. You usually have a TV above a fireplace in the living room and maybe one in the bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
not the kind of stuff. And, if I get version 1 and they come out with version 2 in 18 months or whatever the case may be, and she likes it, I have heard a lot of spouses say, yeah, that's pretty cool. And one spouse, before they even got out of the store, said, yeah, when you upgrade to version 2, I get this one.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't, the other thing that I had in here that I took out because we won't really have time, but the social impacts of all of this, right? I am not
Mm-hmm.
going to watch Dune the first time. My wife and I will go see that in the theater.
Right.
We'll pick our favorite
Yeah.
seats in
We
the
still love
theater.
that experience. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, not
Mm-hmm.
really her thing. So that's a series I can watch by myself. I'd love to have watched them fighting the Gorn
Right.
on these screens, right? And there's other stuff that she likes to do. Like she likes to watch, she's been watching a lot about tiny homes, and she's actually found this concept they have called RV barns. Wait till we get into that one. But she does all of that stuff sitting with the iPad on her
Mm-hmm.
chest at night, right? And so, there might be uses for this kind of stuff. We just don't know where it's going to go. So
Right.
again, the question was, can it replace an iPad? Is it the best iPad ever made? Well, depending on your use case, it may be the best iPad ever made, particularly because you can connect it to macOS and do all of those things that are so cumbersome on an iPad through macOS.
Right.
Does that mean it's a replacement for everybody? No. Would I recommend Jason replace his iPad with a Vision Pro? No. Am I considering doing it because my use case is different? Yes. And are there other people that instead of paying $4,000, because at that point your price is about the same, if you get
Right.
the highest end 12.9-inch iPad Pro,
Yeah.
should they maybe
Plus
be
all of the
thinking about that?
extras.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on that, Jason?
No, that makes perfect sense. I think that's a good place to end it.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and make sure you hit that subscribe on the YouTube channel, because the main show, the post show, there'll be separate videos that go out there, and then we've got some other surprises coming, so that I think you'll
Yeah.
like. So don't forget to give us feedback too. So Have a
Yeah.
great day. And from this tech grandpa, thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See you next week.